get real, child. Let's get real.
Thanks for being with us again. Hope you're enjoying the content on Get Real TV and our channels. Today, I'm honored to have a lady who is running for U.S. Senate in Georgia, who is a real patriot and not at all a conventional politician, hadn't had a career in politics, and comes from a very interesting background. So please enjoy hearing from Reagan Box, and we're super excited to have you on the show and to learn about how you can help make the world a better place.
Thank you very much for having me. I can't wait, and I'm excited to represent Georgia. And you know, it's just bringing common sense and human decency back to our government. And instead of being afraid to talk about the issues, let's just get them out in the open, because to me, it's just highly irresponsible to have a government where the officials, like Social Security and welfare, they know it's the system's failing, but they won't discuss anything because they're afraid of getting reelected.
Yeah, well, it is true. And big issues get pushed down the road, and everybody's thinking about the next election and not the long term. And, you know, this government debt situation has gotten so out of hand, and we're just we're at the end of an exponential blow up in debt growth. And people talk about, oh, what's the debt going to be in 10 years? I don't think we have 10 years before things blow up.
I don't believe we do either. I don't. Honestly, if Trump wouldn't have made it, I think it would have sped up to 3 to 5 years. We have Trump's obviously foiled their plans, but if we don't do something like what I'd like to do is repeal the 16th Amendment, institute the fair tax, because there's no loopholes for special interest groups and things. It's said that we can generate an extra 10 to 25% more money for our country. And so you think about that, we can put a law into place that specifies all that extra money that we're making towards paying off our national debt. And once we get our national debt paid, it's like a burden and a tax off the American people's back, because that causes inflation. And then 2, we can lower the fair tax so that they have that burden off their back also. It would just be better for the American people.
Well, I agree. But, you know, the irony is that running a debt and not paying the interest and borrowing the interest too is really a tax on capital that diverts money that could go into productive investments into being wastefully spent by the federal government. And politicians love to paint the picture of federal debt being a safe investment and kind of a place to park your cash. But it's really a fool's errand and a Ponzi scheme that just relies on more people buying in than want to sell.
If you wouldn't run your business or your household that way, why are we allowing our government? It makes absolutely no sense. You couldn't do that with your business. And if you ran your household, well, most Americans do run their household that way. That's why we have, the average American has, I think, 20,000 in credit card debt. So, and it doesn't work for them either. Millions of Americans go bankrupt every year. So yeah, we've already proven it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work.
Well, I hope that you resonate with Georgia. So let's talk about some of the other positions that you're interested in promoting as a change from your person you're running against, Ossoff, who's a very liberal guy who really doesn't fit the Georgia ethos. But I think kind of won partly because people in Georgia thought, hey, if we vote Democratic, we'll get more checks, because the Republican candidates for Senate were against another COVID bailout check. So I think that issue is done with now, and people are seeing the consequences of that, quote, free money being inflation and more government debt. So we need common sense strategies. So let's talk more about that.
So I think inadvertently our laws have had this trickle down effect onto the American people, where everybody thinks they need a participation trophy. Either it's through welfare, DI hires, these government bailouts and everything. People don't want to work anymore. They just expect everything to be given to them. So, like welfare, we spent $1.2 trillion last year. What I would like to do with the welfare system, because like my namesake, Ronald Reagan said, it's not how many people you have on the system, it's how many people you get off the system. So I would like to allow people to be on the system for 5 years. While they're on the system, the government will pay for them to go to a trade school so they can learn a skill to get out of poverty. And if they're not willing to go to school, they don't get a check. But we need those skilled labor jobs badly. And this will have people paying into the system instead of just draining the system dry. And I think it'll be a lot better, because one of the ripple effects from welfare has been that inadvertently we've broken apart the American family, because we've incentivized women to stay single and keep having children to get more and more money. And we've all read the studies on what happens to these children when they're brought up in a fatherless household. They have anger and rage issues. They do more poorly in school. There's all sorts of social issues that go along with it that follow these children into adulthood. So I think this will be a better system for the American people. What I'd also like to do is change Social Security, because I find it atrocious that you only get a negative 4% return of investment on your Social Security. The government gets to dip into it anytime they want. And then they say you're only on Social Security for a year before you pass away. Your family can't inherit the money that you've worked so hard to pay into the system. So what I'd like to see done is say, okay, everyone 40 and above, you get to keep your Social Security. 40 and below, the government's going to mandate that you go get an annuity at whatever financial institute you want. And your employer has to pay into it every paycheck, just like Social Security. Can't touch it till you're 65. But the great part about this is you get 4 to 6% return of investment, and the government can't touch it, and your children can inherit it. Therefore, we can start building generational wealth for our youth here in America. So here in the state of Georgia, for example, the cost of living here is $1,800 a month, but you only get $1,300 a month for your Social Security check. That's why Georgia's in the top 10 states of people going hungry every single day. 1 in 7 elderly and 1 in 12 children. My idea for Social Security, getting people more money in their elderly years, will actually help fix that issue.
Well, that's a bold innovation, and we definitely need to have a discussion about real solutions. And I'm actually a little bolder in that I think we need to make Social Security into a charity and have it be means tested, where it rewards people. And I'm for making charitable contributions that go directly to helping people be more than 100% deductible instead of the current only 60%. So that's one of my.
I think all these government programs have taken away from our Christian duties to take care of people, because now I hear a lot of people saying, "I'm not going to help. The government's going to do it."
Exactly. Exactly. I've heard so many rich people say that, oh, I don't have to give to charity because I pay so much in taxes. And I just had the unpleasant experience of writing several big checks to the IRS.
I'm all about abolishing that. It just doesn't make sense. And like I said, the loopholes are so big. The tax code is so complex. Even Neil Gorsuch last year in an interview, he said, yeah, it's too complex. Even the IRS is telling people how to do their taxes wrong because they can't even understand it. And it's bad when the IRS can't understand their own tax code.
And it's just a huge welfare program for lawyers and accountants to spend all kinds of money on that. But, well, we need some common sense reality. And I love that you want to get real about the budget expenses and, really be a force for change. And we desperately need in 26 to see the Republicans gain Senate seats, and ideally really build up enough steam to overcome the filibuster and the 60 vote rule. And get things.
I tell people that this 26 election is just as pivotal as Trump's election for this one reason. Everything Trump has done through executive order, if we don't elect not only Republicans, but America First Republicans that will codify all this into law, then the next Democrat president's just going to change it right back and we'll be right back where we started. And so, I mean, it's really pivotal that we take charge this election and we push hard in every single state to get all these Democrat chairs flipped.
Well, the exciting thing for my Texas viewers is that we've got you planned to come to Texas on May 21st and 22nd for two events. So that fits people's schedule better. And we're going to be sending out an email, but if people go to GetRollTV.com, they can find out more. We're going to have a lot of presents on that. We're super excited to introduce you. And you've had a very interesting life history working with animals. And
they'll love me out in Texas. A lot of your viewers may, without knowing they know me. I was actually one of the top 3 women cutting horse trainers in the world. And I lived out in West Texas and New Mexico for a long time. Sold horses. I trained for $200,000. I got to work for Rex Tillerson training horses while he's Trump's Secretary of State. And just had a phenomenal time doing it. I was a women's ranch rodeo reserve world champion, U.S. cutting horse reserve world champion. So chances are some of your viewers know me.
Wow.
Well, that'll be great. And I think there's so much that needs to be done in the government. And we desperately need real America First senators. We've got some senators that are kind of swamp creatures, like our former head of the Senate, McConnell. And I'm very sad that I've got a swamp senator here in Texas with John Cornyn. And so we need true conservatives.
I tell people when I give them my background, I say, you've got to remember, for a living, I tied down 1,000 to 2,000 pound animals till they submitted to my will. So imagine me going to the U.S. Senate and doing it to McConnell, Schumer, Romney, and the rest of them, because it's probably going to happen if you elect me.
It's got to happen. I don't think they're even listening anymore. They
aren't. And I tell people part of the way we're going to have to fix it is I'm trying to build a social media army, because we learned on January 6th, they're most afraid of us. So when I give the call to action, tell you to call your senators, tell you to come and protest if you can, we need millions of people to show up. And once we start rattling the cages, we the people, they'll start listening.
Yes. I'm not positive that it has to be done in person. I think we showed tremendous strength when Trump was elected and they didn't see it coming. And I think, a lot of times that's the way it's going to be, because real busy Americans who want the job don't mind paying the taxes because they want the infrastructure, reform and fixed and that sort of thing. They don't mind just voting, putting their money where their mouth is and voting and saying, I want Reagan box in Georgia, because I know she's going to make sure I have a job and a roof over my head, stuff like that. I don't think, I know coming out is important. Like the Democrats have been trying to pull people together to show us their fight. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think logically, our voters are smart enough to get it and to go out there and just vote instead of having to, run around with a sign or get paid to run around with a sign, as some of those rallies are. What do you think, Reagan?
It just takes someone with integrity and a backbone. Bottom line, I was really upset, and I won't name names, but there was a Georgia U.S. House member that got a bill passed, I think it was last week, going after judges that go after that overstep their judicial reach. And I'm thinking, why waste your time and taxpayer money doing this? All you need to know is the Constitution gives our legislative branch the power to impeach federal judges. That's all you have to do. Go with what's already there and enforce the laws that are already written. Simple.
Yep, I agree.
And so, it's just so frustrating to me watching this, because And bringing back the rule of law in our nation is really simple. Just impeach them. I mean, Ketanji Brown Jackson should have never been allowed in the Supreme Court as soon as she said she couldn't define what a woman was because she's not a biologist. Our Declaration distinctly says our laws are derived from the laws of nature and nature of laws, which means Mother Nature and God.
Exactly. Maybe in reverse order, kind of. God and then Mother
Yeah,
Nature.
I'm trying to remember. I always get it. Something like that.
But either way, we get it. So tell me, what do you think about immigration, the border? And I'm going to leave it quite broad so you can pick up wherever you want to start.
So I'm so happy with what Trump is doing on the border. I agree with labeling the cartel as a terrorist organization. Like I tell people, if the cartel were willing to dig 30 miles worth of tunnels to get El Chapo out of prison, then they will find a way around that wall. I mean, we need the wall, don't get me wrong, but they will find a way around that wall. We also, Chip Roy last year in the House, actually that was 2023, he tried to pass HR 1523, but it's still stuck in Judicial Committee. So we all need to reach out to Jim Jordan and ask him to push through 1564, which allows Congress to label the cartel as a terrorist organization. If we do that and clean up the cartel, we will also clean out the corruption in these governments. And the people will want to stay in their country when they're not having their money stolen from them, being harassed by the cartel, being raped and murdered violently from the cartel. It will just make their lives better. It will make the world better when we're not having to worry about drugs and fentanyl. So another issue that I want to speak about personally with the border that no one's speaking about is the biosecurity hazard it is with both livestock and agriculture. So most people have never thought about how your lettuce gets E. coli, Listeria, or Salmonella. But when these illegals are going through these properties and have to use a bathroom, it gets on our food and they can't wash it off no matter how hard they try. So that's part of what's going on there. The issues I see with livestock, especially Texas, we think of that as our prime ranching country, right? So I'm going to use Haiti, for example. We've seen what the disruption in the Haitian government and the civil unrest going on. So we know that we're going to have an influx of Haitian illegals. But the problem is that in Haiti right now, they have brucellosis going through their cows.
Oh,
Brucellosis here in the United States means that your cow has to be euthanized immediately if it's found to have brucellosis. So these illegals are carrying the brucellosis on their clothing and on their shoes. It can live on clothing, shoes, soil for 90 days, and it can live in water for 120 days. Imagine all the other virus and bacteria and diseases they're carrying with them that can infect the soil for God knows how long. Let's just look at parvo for your dog. That can live in your soil for 7 years. So we can be making a complete dead zone that attacks our cows, pigs, goats, whatever meat that we may need to survive and sustain our nation. And we would never know it with what's going on at the border. Last May, I actually got to meet with Sid Miller, y'all's head of Texas Department of Ag. And he was telling me swine flu is a big problem in Texas from the illegals carrying it in on them.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Wow.
that one's a really big one. I'll tell you one other
That
issue
is
that no one's
huge.
speaking about. So this is crazy. And I heard this back in 2012 from a family living near, I think it was El Paso. They were looking to move to like Central Texas or New Mexico to get away from what was going on at the border. And so I could only imagine how bad it is now if this was in 2012. But they said, they were afraid of, or they were tired of checking cows with AK-47s. They told me the second issue that they were having to deal with is, and I want you to think about this just on your local level. So your county coroner only has so much money to put into his system every year. And when you find bodies without any family members, no license or anything of who they are, the coroner has to cremate the bodies, and they have to store the bodies indefinitely till they can find next of kin. Well, these coroners on the border are not funded enough to do all that. They just don't. So they actually told this family that I spoke with back in 2012, just dig a big hole and push all the dead illegals in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had never heard of that before till then, but it makes perfect sense. You know, every cremation costs money. You're funded only so much a year. So what do you do, especially under the Biden administration, when you have millions and millions of people coming in and they're going through desert, not having food and water, and they're dying on people's properties right, left, and sideways.
Oh, my goodness.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we shut off the flow, and I think it's amazing that all the talk about we need new legislation. All we needed was some spine in the White House, and we've got it now. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's going to be exciting to see how your campaign goes. If people want to, you desperately need support. You're not funded by the big PACs. You're not,
No.
a woke creature. And so people can go to Reagan Box for Senate and
ReaganForGeorgia.com.
ReaganForGeorgia.com. Good deal.
Yep.
Well, that is wonderful. And we're looking forward to you coming to Texas and sharing the good news that Georgia has a great dynamic candidate who isn't a lawyer and isn't a woke creature or a swamp creature, as they call them, but is out to drain the swamp and make it into a much happier place and see this government shrink down to a more reasonable size. So,
Oh, it's just crazy. Just common sense things so until 1918, this was illegal. And for whatever reason, they legalized this in 1918. But dual citizenship in our federal government. Why are we allowing this? And now this has nothing to do with Israel. It's just easiest to find this information on Israel because of the people's Jewish heritage. But we have nearly 90 members of our U.S. Congress that have dual citizenship with Israel alone.
right.
We have people with dual citizenship from the Middle East, Switzerland, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, and several other nations. That's a conflict of interest. You think these people are writing aid packages and everything to these countries? It's just not fair. This isn't about the American people anymore.
Yeah, I think our representative needs to be 100% American. Well, It's been wonderful to have you on, and I hope that people have enjoyed getting to know you a little bit. And we'll go to your website and learn more and see all your great position on so many issues. And we're glad to have you on and look forward to seeing you here in Texas here in a couple of weeks and a month.
Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, you too. God bless, Reagan.
Bye-bye.
Great day. Bye.